This is the 8th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the second week of September 2010. This episode is titled Wave Saved. CloudFocus Weekly is sponsored by Arkus, cloud computing experts. I'm your host, Jason Atwood, and joining me for the 8th time is my co-host, Justin Elstein. Justin, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great here in the podcast studio at the Arkus offices.
We got the snowball up and running.
Snowball. Was the title a question? Wave saved?
Wave saved? Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
Okay. On the agenda today, so we're going to talk about Wave in a Box. Don't make any jokes.
I will not. This is not an explicit podcast.
This is not. This is clean. We'll talk about other Google news. So Google Instant.
Fun.
The blog post that I did about Plone 4 and integrating it with Salesforce. Talk a little bit about that. And then some Seesmic and Chatter news.
Some news out of the tour in Europe.
The CloudFocus, not CloudFocus.
Yeah, it's
Dreamforce. It's Cloud Tour London.
Yeah,
I would say it's Dreamforce London, but it's not.
It's not Dreamforce London.
Yeah, so some news out of there, including mobile chatter and things like that. We'll discuss. All right, so let's jump back and talk a little bit about Wave in a Box. As you know, because you're a long-term listener of this podcast, Google with a great product called Wave, which is supposed to revolutionize email, and it's instant, it's collaborative, it's kind of like discussions and all this stuff. They basically decided to not do it anymore, discontinue it. A huge uproar from the rest of the world came out. They said they were going to open source it. They didn't really explain how. Well, they've explained how now. In a blog post, they came out. Google said that they will be releasing Wave in a Box, which will not come in a box. It will be downloadable, installable. It will be both server. It'll have a server component and a client component. It'll be client server model.
The opposite of this podcast's focus.
It's true, except for here's where I think it's interesting is that someone's going to take this open source software and turn it into a cloud service. Why wouldn't you? Trust me, I have thought about us doing it, but we're not going to. I don't want to be in that business. But the idea is that once it's open source, then you can take the foundation of it, turn it into a service, charge someone whatever per month, and then you can put it in the cloud again. So I think a couple things they said: it will import from Google Wave, so you'll be able to pull. It will be feature complete, meaning all the stuff that you see today. And truly open source and sort of installable. So it won't be, bring down, compile all your stuff. I expect it to, while not be, installing iTunes that easy, I expect it to be someone who knows what they're doing with systems and has they'll have to have some sort of database backend, I assume. Maybe not. Maybe they'll use their own Google, because Google has their own, I think they call it Bigtable, which is their own database system. So it'll be interesting. I'm just happy that for at least a little bit more, as I sit here and stare at our Wave, which is this podcast, I'm excited that it'll at least survive a little longer.
So is it the protocols that are like the secret sauce here that they're packaging up?
It's everything. It's the ability to store it. It's the ability to have the instant communication, right? They're using some technologies, which they've open sourced the technologies behind it, but it needs to become an application, right? So you'll need to log into something. So it'll be kind of like...
Is it going to be a client app on my computer, or is it going to be on the web?
It'll be a web app, but that web app, when you log into it, will be a client to a server, just like it is today. This is a client, right? This Google Wave is a client. It's talking to a server instance. It's cloud because they have it distributed, multi-tenancy, one version, all that. In other Google news, Google, I think 2 days ago, yesterday, released... They did a very Apple thing. They had the Apple, like a Google announcement, and they said it's a search announcement, and they said it had it at a little place, at a hall. They invited all the press and kind of were a little vague on what it was, and they released something I think they've been working on for a while, which is called Google Instant. It is a new version of Google that you can turn on, which basically allows, as you type things, the results in real time flow down below. And since you and I have worked in search for quite a while now, and you took a look at it, what do you think?
I think it's pretty groundbreaking. I mean, the ability to, as I sit here, I'm playing with it. I type the letter W, and out of nowhere, the weather for New York City pops up because it's sort of location aware, and I just typed one letter, and out of nowhere, this Google One Box user interface type thing pops up, and I see the 4-day weather forecast for New York City, which is pretty phenomenal. You used to have to go to weather.com, type in your zip code, and then you get how many clicks and pages is that, as opposed to just typing the letter W into a box that could sort of do anything that you want it to do.
Yep.
It kind of reminds me of like old school green screen mainframe apps where you can sort of key in commands like, W equals weather, and then you give it a zip code and you hit enter, and it runs this query on a mainframe and brings back in lightning quick time, brings back a result for you. That sort of reminds me of that type of experience.
Well, as we used to work at a firm that had a very big mainframe green screen application, and the problem as we worked sort of in the business that was controlling it or part of it, we always said, we'd like to get people off this because mainframe green screens, they have some advantages. They're lightning fast, but very structured data. Building those screens is a pain. Not very versatile. Can't really do much else with it. Can't
really train on it. It's very difficult. You have to know code.
Yeah,
it's like
codes.
FRW space numbers space. Whatever.
Not user friendly.
Not user friendly at all. No mouse.
So this
is fine.
So this is what's nice is because I think this kind of connects the two, right? You're getting instant results, like instant, and that it is as instant as they say.
Yeah.
But you're also not having to sort of think out what you're going to search for. You type in a whole search phrase to see if you're going to get the result. So Google had this sort of type ahead where it would say, "Are you looking for this?" Which a lot of blogs and stuff make fun of because there's funny, you'll say, "What is the?" and it'll come up with some really strange, suggestion. But now it's giving you the actual results below. I think it's great. I mean, Google. I actually had a thought this morning when we were going to do this podcast. I was thinking, oh yeah, and this is a great feature, and we'll all get used to it. Then they'll decide they don't want it because because no one's adopting it. So anyway, check it out at google.com/instant. I think it's search is always a place where innovation helps, and Bing has been doing some great innovation in search. Even watching Salesforce try to catch up with, they have their version of sort of type ahead search. But it's interesting to watch Google innovate some more, which is great. So then next thing we're going to talk about is a blog post I put up about Plone 4 and Salesforce integration. So it's sort of one thing sparked the other. So Plone, which is an open source content management system, basically to build websites, portals, communities, etc., which is something I've been using since before Plone existed. It was something else, and I was using that technology called Zope. It's really, really matured. And Plone 4 released, and I thought, I want to blog about Plone 4, get the word out. But then, since we actually use Plone and Salesforce integration, so basically the blog post is talking about how to connect them and really what the advantages and disadvantages are, and what the tools are. Basically, there's some packages for Plone that you can install. They call them products, which make a connection to Salesforce, and they use the API. So you can do cool things. One of the cool things you can do is called user authentication. So I can have a Plone site, let's call it your website, let's call it your corporate site, or your intranet site, like our internet site, which when I log in, I'm authenticating against Salesforce. So my username is my Salesforce username, and my password is my Salesforce password. And when I type those in, it then doesn't look towards its own database. It basically uses Salesforce as a single sign-on mechanism. Makes the call, API comes back, says yes, this person can do that, and lets them in. So it actually has to be an active user within Salesforce. That's pretty cool. You can also do that for clients or for leads. So you can have people register on your website instead of that going as an email that you type into your CRM or have it go into a database that you then sync somewhere. It literally, as they type it and hit submit, then that information flows in as a lead. Their username and password is all that captured in Salesforce. And then when they come back to re-log in, if they edit their profile, they're actually editing the version in Salesforce. So for customers, it could be great for the ability to edit their address data, and then it's you're capturing that on the other side. So it's your website. They're there. And you can also do, that's one version. Another thing you can do is collect data from the web. So we had an example for a client that wanted to do event registration. And what she was capturing was a simple form that had, name, organization, as a nonprofit, name, organization, what date, time they're going to go, how many tickets they needed, something like that. Well, in Salesforce, that's actually 3 different objects, right? That's an organization, and that's a contact related to the organization, and that's an event or a registration associated to the organization and the contact, right? They filled out one little form. When they hit submit, it actually populated all 3 and connected them in Salesforce. So very cool stuff. Again, please check out Plone, Plone.
Spelled it wrong. You guys
Plone.com, which is a great thing. There's also on the blog post, you'll see on blog.arkusinc.com, you'll see I've linked to a couple of the tools and shown how you can use it. We use Plone. I mean, you must have some thoughts on Plone because we use it for our intranet and for our website.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice content management tool that allows you to do easy content creation, easy linking of content. So easy, you write a blog post and you want to relate other bits and pieces of content that's already sitting on the website. Very easy to do that. Very easy to upload images and place them. The new version looks really nice as far as being able to edit content a lot easier, more inline type features, more, I would say, better WYSIWYG editors, things of that nature.
Yeah, it comes with a new one. They used to use one called Kupu, Kupou. Now uses one called TinyMCE.
Yeah.
Again, geeks, they love to name these things funny. But other just things. There's a new theme, new out of default theme. After about 9 years, they've kind of built a theme that you can then skin to make whatever you want to look like. It's much faster. I think it's like 3 to 4 times faster, which is great because Plone has a lot of features, but it suffers from them because it's trying to do a lot. They have dashboards. There's new ways of showing folders. It's got some. What's nice is that it's the open source community is a interesting beast because they're not set to anybody's standard. They set to their own standard. But what they're doing in Plone 4 is basically getting Plone ready for Plone 5, which is they're doing almost what Apple did with Snow Leopard, which is we're going to set a foundation here. Yeah, we're going to add in some features, but the stuff that they've put into Plone 4 is really to create the base of the infrastructure, then to blow it through the roof with a whole set of new features. But they had to do this release to kind of get them there. I'm fascinated by open source software just because, again, it's so different from what we're experiencing. What we experience when we experience at a huge enterprise company, in that all these people not paid to do it, but organized and doing it almost better than big organizations do it. That would be an interesting study: is how could you bring the open source movement internal to a closed source application? Anyway, next thing is why don't you tell us what the next thing on the agenda is?
Sure. The next thing is something that we mentioned was announced at the Cloud Tour. Why am I missing? Is it Tour de Cloud? That's what it used to be called, or Tour de Force? I'm missing the
blah blah cloud, blah blah Salesforce London.
Salesforce London. That was announced just yesterday. We're recording this on a Friday, so it was done yesterday on Thursday. It was basically the integration of Salesforce Chatter with a consumer application from Seesmic. Seesmic is if anyone has used Seesmic for Twitter or Facebook, or the ability to sort of connect all your social presences together, it essentially runs in Air, Adobe Air on your desktop, but it does sort of pull all these networks together into one place and allows you, as most people use Twitter with a client. I think last week you did a Cloud Pick of the Week for Tweety for the iPad. Twitter for the iPad.
Yep.
It's a very similar application to that, but now they've announced that Chatter will be part of that application. So presumably and they just announced it yesterday, so not too many details out there about it, but presumably you'll be able to sit on this Seesmic desktop client, which a lot of people have been asking for Chatter, and post to Salesforce Chatter. Have
as well as
Twitter, as
right.
well as Facebook, as well as any other social network that you're involved with. and do all the things that people have been asking for, like little toast messages and pop-ups when I get a new chatter, or any sort of little bits and pieces that have been missing because Chatter's just embedded within the Salesforce user interface.
Which is a side note, which is they're turning on Chatter during the Winter 11 release, which we got to have a whole podcast on that, probably coming up soon.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about all things. But one of the features that they're doing in there is they're turning Chatter on for everybody. And you have to opt out of it now. So it was opt in 2 releases ago, or 1 release ago. Now it's opt out if you don't want to go. Eventually, and we were talking to a client the other day about this. They were on the old look and feel, and they're like, oh, why would I go to the new look and feel? I'm like, well, because you're going to have to, because eventually they're not going to support it anymore, and eventually objects will start to use only the new interface, and then you won't be able to get to the opportunity object because it will be only in the new interface. And the admin interface is actually coming as well, which I'm very excited about.
A couple other changes down the road,
new episode.
We'll blow out. We'll do a whole Winter 11 episode.
Yep.
But some other things that Salesforce announced around Chatter yesterday was, again, more client apps for it. So mobile apps for iPhone, Android coming, iPad, just straight up Chatter apps. Not Salesforce Mobile with Chatter in it, but just Chatter, which is sort of ties in to the blog post that we wrote a couple weeks ago about comparing Chatter to Yammer, which Yammer sort of integrates. It's this consumer type product that integrates with like the Twitters and the Facebooks of the world, but is used for the enterprise and has client apps on the mobile devices and on the desktop. So this move for Salesforce sort of cuts right at what Yammer does, which is to be like a standalone app.
Right.
Now Chatter can sort of act as a standalone application as well. I think it's a pretty big move.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Winter 11, but if you look at it, a lot of it is around Chatter.
Yeah, they are doing a lot with Chatter, and interesting that the next versions of mobile are. I think what they're doing is they're releasing a Chatter app for iPad. Maybe it might be a universal app. That's maybe, but I've seen the version of the Chatter app, and it's all built on Chatter. So what they're making a bet, and I'm not sure they're going to win this bet, or maybe it's a bet that there'll be a push on. But they're making a bet that that Chatter is everything, and that there's nothing else, because this app is only about Chatter. Yeah, you can see data, you can see opportunity data you can see objects that people have chitted about, but it doesn't have the other Salesforce functionality into it. And as a Salesforce big-time user, as a iPad user, I'd rather have a Salesforce mobile app for the iPad than a Salesforce Chatter app for the iPad. I think it's cool, but again, I think they're sort of betting that Chatter is the thing, and the other stuff, almost the CRM stuff, takes secondary notice. So the demo was very cool. We saw it. It's actually on YouTube. There's a YouTube video of it. You can see it's pretty cool. But yeah, they're making a bet with this, and obviously getting other people to integrate. We'll see if other types of aggregators like Hootsuite or Tweety decide to go down this path. Is it easy for them, or do they have to really make a connection with Salesforce and get development resources? I don't know. So, all right. Well, time for the CloudFocus app pick of the week.
Rolls right off the tongue.
It does, and I will not go first.
Go figure.
8 episodes, 8 times.
Go figure.
So all you go for it. Tell me what's your CloudFocus app pick of the week.
So I'm picking a survey application. Last week, I love these cloud survey apps. Last week I picked one from Force.com Labs. This week,
so many choices.
This week I'm picking Surveymonkey, which a lot of people know already because it's one of the most, if not the most popular survey application on the web. But the twist is that it's now available in the Google App Marketplace. So you have that sort of single sign-on. It's available via your Google Apps environment. So if you're an admin of Google Apps, you just sort of add this app to your environment, and then people log in and they have this new app. So Google Apps is really sort of moving towards integrating all of these third-party applications into their product suite. So thought it was pretty interesting that you'd be able to use your Google app's login to get into Surveymonkey, which is a really, 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 really great full-featured survey tool that has been touted on the web. A lot of people use it. I've used it in the past. It's very full-featured. Now available via Google Apps Marketplace.
Price?
Good question. Not sure if there's any additional cost to having it within the Google App Marketplace. Let me get back to you on that one.
Thank you, as you type away.
I'm just going to figure it out real quick by typing it into Google Instant.
There you go. All right. Well, I have two picks. One, which is an obvious one, Plone 4, Plone.org, Plone.com, go for it. But then I'll pick a real app. Since you went non-Salesforce app, I'll go back and do a Salesforce app. Something I watched a video of, I've been playing with for a while. I think we're going to hear much, much more about this. So it's a company called Jigsaw, which was bought by Salesforce, I don't know, 6 months ago, something like that. Basically, it's a online social contact manager. So it takes the concept of a contact, meaning Jason Atwood, COO of Arkus Inc., and opens that up for other people to update and do and play with. So that's Jigsaw. You log in, there's a whole point system to it, which is a little bit gamey, kind of like Foursquare, checking into places. So you get points, and those points allow you to see other people's data. If you update someone's data to something real, like if I went in and saw that your title was wrong and I updated, I would get points. Those points allow me to look at other people, so you can look up other contacts, find out their email address. So it's like, a social contact manager. Because I think what Salesforce sees, and for a reason for buying it, is that that's where the world's going, is that, how many copies of my contact are there in Salesforce alone? How many? I don't know. 10, 15? Like, I can tell you I know of about 6, right? Well, that's all duplicate data. And if one person updates with the right phone number, well, then the next person isn't. I think what they're going to try to do is try to connect them. So when one person updates Jason Atwood in their Salesforce instance, that somehow the other person who owns that Jason Atwood contact also gets notified. You can see a really cool. I know there's all sorts of issues with.
Lots of issues there.
Lots of issues, but Jigsaw for Salesforce CRM is a start to it. So what this tool kind of lets you to look at Jigsaw to see is what I have and what Jigsaw is different. It'll send you notifications. You can get list views. It'll if you install the package. Still trying to work out the pricing, so I too don't know my own pricing.
Well, I know my pricing.
Okay, what is it?
Well, I was looking to see, because the basic plan for Surveymonkey is free.
Yeah.
So I was looking to see if there's like a Google tag, and there's not. The basic package is free, and you can totally use it within Google Apps for free. There's some advanced features. It's sort of freemium for $16.67 per month.
$16.06. That seems like an odd number.
It is an odd number, I will admit.
Like not your $14.95, not your $19.95.
Nope, $16.67.
So anyway, I'll finish up on Jigsaw. You install it into Salesforce. You can then pick contacts to go. It'll tell you on the contact whether it's been updated in Jigsaw or not. It basically creates kind of a sync to Jigsaw. So if you have a contact, you can then fill in data. I could put in Jason Atwood and put in an email address. Then it would go to Jigsaw and say, do I have other information? Come down, here's his real phone number. If things change, it will tell you, his title changed. I think it's the start of what could be a very, very powerful connection between CRM and the social network and other people updating it.
The only issue I have I have many issues with this, but one of the main issues is how do I trust this thing? How do I know that some person changed Jason Atwood's phone number in Jigsaw has it right, and I don't? Because I just called you yesterday and you picked up the phone.
Well, true, and there are stuff built into Jigsaw today that does that. There's ability to mark contacts as I think they call them graveyard. So this doesn't exist anymore. There is, and I think if you get it right, you get kind of more points for it. So there is a system for it. It's not perfect, and again, it needs some thinking, but the concept, very cool. That there's one social contact manager that people can do and submit to, and that you can pull from. So
I assume you can buy leads from it.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the
There's more to it.
business model is, you know, if you want to update 1,000 of your contacts, you pay XX per month and you pull them down. That's why they give you points, is because the points get you to come down things for free. So if I update 7 people, I think I get however many points, and then I can use those points to go grab other people's data.
Sort of like a Hoover's, but for people,
Yeah.
not really for business, and it's totally connected.
And that other people can update. So
Right.
So, and you can see a connection even to LinkedIn. Like, wow, if I connect Jigsaw to LinkedIn, because people are updating their information there, maybe you could connect your LinkedIn profile to your Jigsaw profile, so then when you actually update it, it does update it, so then you know that it's true. Totally cool things I can see happening, none of which we have to talk about today. So you got Surveymonkey,
Yep.
freemium
Premium.
from Google App Marketplace, or in Google App Marketplace.
One more time.
Google App Marketplace.
Perfect.
I'm doing Plone 4 and Jigsaw for Salesforce CRM, available on the App Exchange. And that's it. So if you want to follow us in any of our Jigsaw-like places, we are actually in Jigsaw because I entered us there. Justin's looking at me like, what? And but we're on Twitter. If you want to follow the company, it's at Arkus Inc., ARKUSINC. I'm at Jason M. Atwood on Twitter, and Justin's at Just Edelstein. So twitter.com/Just Edelstein. Also Facebook, facebook.com/Arkus Inc. We post our blog posts, we post our stories up there. We don't overpost. We just post enough for you to be interested. And if you want to keep up with the podcast and know when it's coming out, because we record one a week, but sometimes early in the week, sometimes later in the week, and you don't know when it's coming. A great way, other than following us on those other places, is to subscribe in iTunes. You go into iTunes, type in CloudFocus Weekly. The search isn't as good as Google Instant, but you'll get us, hit subscribe, and then every time we publish an podcast, it'll just instantly come down, and you can put it on your Zune player of choice. So for this week, thank you for joining on CloudFocus Weekly. And until next week, well, keep on enjoying those cloudy days.